Hello guys, welcome back to Jazzy61. Today's video I want to get into a recap of 2024 and a little bit of 23 because some of this stuff crosses over into that time frame as well. Before we get going, I want to say hello and welcome if you are new here. Hi, I am Jazz. I do everything motherhood, lifestyle, a little bit of beauty. I try to do these types of videos because I think it's informative and it helps some people, especially if you're going through something or you're going through some of the stuff that I go through, but maybe you don't have a name for it. Maybe you know what questions to ask next time. But this video is kind of just informative to kind of catch all up on like the slew of crazy that has been, or the slew of rough that has been our last year. We'll try to get to this video kind of quickly because my munchkin is sitting in his bed and they're just kind of hanging out, and it's only the time I can probably sneak away. So I snuck away for just a few moments to just update y'all on what's been happening, because there's a lot of things that I have been mentioning the last couple of years plus, and we finally got some answers to some of the questions that we've had for this entire time. So first thing, y'all saw that our 6-year-old has been going through it. As I mentioned in a lot of videos in the past, you can go back and see how I handled some of this stuff as well, so it may help if you're dealing with something like this, like I said before. But our 6-year-old especially has been incredibly sick since we moved into this house, which was 2.5, almost 3 years ago now. And we haven't had any answers as to what was going on. So to give you a little bit of background on what's been going on, we have been in the emergency room just about every month or every other month since we moved here, because there's just some things that aren't in our control to fix or to help. And what's been happening to our 6-year-old is he just has random moments or random days where he just gets sick. And when I say sick, I mean to his stomach. He just starts throwing up. And what leads up to it is he'll come out, he'll say, "My tummy hurts." And we go, "Okay, buddy." And then we'll try to figure out how to get his tummy to stop aching and what have you. And this started when he was still 2. He came out one morning, he said, "Mommy, my tummy aches." And I said, "Okay." Or he just said, "My tummy hurts," because he was 2. And then it went from that to a low groan. He would go, oh. And my husband would come in, and before I know it, he was screaming. I mean, just, ah! And we didn't understand what was happening, but his stomach was hurting that bad. And then he would start throwing up. And the throwing up would last all day. So we were trying to figure out if it was like a stomach bug, because that's what they were saying. They kept saying, "Oh, it's just a tummy bug. It'd be over in a couple, 24 hours, blah, 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 blah." But it was more consistent. It was like, we shouldn't be up here every month to tell you the exact same story and get no answers. So when that started, we actually were living in our old place right outside of Dallas, in north of Dallas. And that's what they kept saying. And they kept sending us on our way. When we moved here, the day we were moving, it happened again in the car. He sat there, he was asleep. He woke up, he said his tummy ached. Then he started groaning. I'm thinking that he was his car seat was too tight on his stomach or something. Trying to get his pull up down a little bit so it won't be restricting his belly button or anything. Next, you know, he's screaming again. He's crying at the top of his lungs, and then he's throwing up in the parking lot. Again, this just continued to happen every other month. The problem is once he starts throwing up, it's every 20 minutes or so, he'll throw up again. And there's nothing you can do to stop the throw up. That's why we were at the hospital, because as you all know, he's 6. He has a bigger body than a 6-year-old, of course, because I'm 6'2", Dad's 6'9", so he's a lot larger than the average kid. But his body still gets dehydrated relatively quickly, and we can't do anything if he's constantly throwing up. So we were in and out of doctors, but we never took it to his pediatrician, because every time it would happen, we would go to the ER, they would tell us the same thing, they would send us on our way. So that's kind of what we were taking it as, especially since he had just started school. So we thought maybe he just keeps picking up stomach bugs. At some point we realized no one else had a stomach bug at his school. There were no tummy bugs going around at all. No one was sick, no one was out. And his school was a small private school at the time, so we know all the kids, right? So about February of 2024, my husband ended up at the emergency room with him again. It kind of hit in the middle of the night. He came in there and woke us up. He said his tummy's aching. We were like, okay, we know what's coming at this point, right? And we get him to the bathroom. My husband always sits in the bathtub with him if he's going to throw up. And then it went from the slow oh to him screaming until he finally threw up. And when I say it's like every 15, 20 minutes that he's throwing up again, every 15, 20 minutes. So I'm like, if it keeps up, take him to the ER. They gave us the nausea medicine that they use, Zofran, which they use for people who are dealing with chemo and they can't keep anything down. They tried other medicine, tried IV medications. He threw up through them all. It did not help a bit. So come February of this year, my husband took him to the emergency room again. They had a new pediatric ER doctor in there. And she looks at his chart, because this is where I was getting frustrated. We can't take him all the way to take him to his primary care physician every time that happens, because she's very popular around here and you can't just get in with her. So she doesn't have like walk-in dates like that. And you have to be on the schedule because her schedule is usually full. So we have to take him to like an urgent care or something like that, which is what we were going to do anyways, because he needed fluids of some kind. He needed something in his system. His body was crazy weak. He was lethargic every single time. That's what's happening. So my husband takes him to the ER, and the new ER, new pediatrician, pediatrician, or what do you even call her? Pediatric ER doctor. She was new. She comes in, she looks at his chart, and she was like, you guys were just here like last month. And my husband's like, yeah, this happens a lot. She was like, So they tried to give him the same medication again to see what was going on. But then she walks out of the room, checks the notes, because we go to the same hospital here in town. They have like one of the only pediatric ERs, really. And then the urgent care that we go to is also theirs. So she goes and she looks at his chart, and she comes back in and she told my husband, you need to ask his pediatrician about cyclic vomiting. First time we ever heard that. But she said, ask them about cyclic vomiting. So he had an appointment coming up with the pediatrician anyway, because after you go to the emergency room sometimes, and it was like right around the time for him to go in for another appointment, they were like, just go over there after. So it was like a couple days later, we finally get in to see his pediatrician. This was right before school started in August, because when we finally got back in, because he got sick. I want to say he got sick again. That was February. Wait, no, I think I got my story backwards. February, he was in the ER. Something else happened then. But he ended up in the ER again in July, the beginning of July. That's when he saw the pediatric doctor. The pediatric ER person was in July. She was like, go to see your pediatrician. We're going to try to get you guys, worked in there earlier if we can. If not, go to his regular appointment, mention cyclic vomiting. So we go to see his his normal pediatrician. And she says, you guys are in the ER again. And then we were like, yeah, because at this point, Kai doesn't need anything. He only goes to see her maybe once a year. That's just before school starts. And that was when this was coming up. So she was like, you guys were in the ER. And he was like, yeah. And what happened? She told me to mention to you cyclic vomiting. And she was like, okay. She's like, well, what's happening? So we started to explain everything to her. We love his pediatrician. She's spot on just about every single time, because she goes based off of the child, not based off of like charts. Oh, this is what the chart says the kid should be at. No, she looks at your kid. She looks at their list, their charts. She looks at everything that she's already worked with them on. And then she makes a decision based upon all of the facts that she has. And so she goes and she looks at the chart again. And she's like, you guys have been at the ER like a lot. And my husband was like, yeah, because he keeps getting sick and they're telling us it's a stomach bug and sending him on his way. And she was like, no, that's not a normal sick, She's like, well, just tell me what's happening. So we started to explain to her. He'll be fine 1 minute. The next minute he says, his tummy aches. Then it goes from a low, oh, to a screaming like he's in pain. And then she said, that does sound like cyclic vomiting. So for you who don't know, cyclic vomiting, it's basically like episodes. What people will have like seizures and stuff, they have like episodes. Well, an episode for cyclic vomiting is what my son was going through. The issue with cyclic vomiting is, one, there is no cure for it. They hope most people grow out of it at some point. The other thing is it varies based upon the person, how the episode goes. So for instance, there are some people who go days. Some people actually go weeks and end up in the hospital the entire time because they have to be on some sort of fluids since their body can't keep anything down on its own. So luckily, Kai's is a little bit more mild. He just kind of gets sick for 24 hours, or a little over 24 hours, where he throws up every 20 minutes or so. The problem with cyclic vomiting is you don't know what triggers it. So the triggers can be lack of sleep, too much sleep, not enough food, certain foods, anxiety, stress, like an allergic reaction. There's such a wide variety, or your body even having like it's not even like a full-blown allergy, but something happening around your body that your body doesn't like can trigger cyclic vomiting. It can trigger an episode. So the problem is we have no idea what's triggering it. And they can't tell you what's triggering it, right? And he's had episodes for what seems like different things. And so we have to be very on top of stuff. So when people talk about his food intake, so one episode was triggered around the holidays. So my son doesn't get to see his cousins often. We live 10 hours away. And so they come down once or twice a year, and he loves playing with his cousins. So on this particular trip, I think it was like Thanksgiving, I want to say, they came down, and he was so caught up playing that Kai didn't eat. We would put food in front of him. He would take like a bite and a half, and then he would get up and go play again. And we were like, did you eat? He's like, yeah. And he takes off running. I'm full. He keeps playing. Okay, the next morning, it hit. It hit hard, like a ton of bricks. Like my baby was just laying on the floor. He could not get up. He didn't want to move. He was just laying there. And he just kept throwing up. And my husband eventually took him to an urgent care that's attached to the hospital that we go to. And they said the same thing. Because again, we didn't find out until last year. So this was Thanksgiving, not of 24, but of 23. And so that was one of the triggers, right? We noticed that at some point we gave him Kool-Aid. That's why you guys don't see Kool-Aid in my grocery videos anymore. It was like the red one, I think it was. That triggered it. Sometimes his allergies would trigger it. If you catch a common cold, it'll trigger it. And so there was like the first day of school, my husband was like, oh, he should be fine. I'm like, no. I was going to a preschool that wasn't a full day because it was a Montessori style school to where they just taught your kid on whatever level they were on. And so he wasn't going for the full day. And I'm telling him, I'm like, if he's overly excited and it's much longer of a day, we could have an issue. He's used to going to school from 8 to 12:30. What you're telling him is he got to be at school at 7:30. He can't come home till 3:30. That's different. Okay, it's a longer period of a day. And with kindergarten these days, they don't do nap time anymore. There's no nap for kids unless you're preschool. And I'm like, if you don't tell him to pause and sit down and drink his water, it may be a problem. He was like, it should be fine. That first day of school whooped my son, okay? He came home, he was fine, and he had an actual migraine, and then it was a problem. And then he was throwing up, and then he just wanted to sleep, and he slept for 13 hours. So what they associate cyclic vomiting with is actual migraines, right? And the thing that was happening with his stomach where he was screaming, they call it a tummy migraine because the pain is just as intense as a migraine. It's just in your abdomen. And so we have had so many different things that could potentially trigger it. Certain juices can trigger it. If he doesn't get enough rest, like I said, it'll trigger it. Like we've been having such a hard time just finding things that he can eat. And this is why I get so offended by people making all these weird comments about what he's eating, what's in his lunchbox. He is a child first. And one of them made some comment about him becoming a diabetic or some crap. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what the heck you're talking about. These are also things that his pediatrician are telling us to give him. Because she says right now, we just need him to eat. He has to eat. And my son just started picking up weight here recently because there were so many things he couldn't eat. And then the food aversions come because everything that he's thrown up, he doesn't want to eat anymore. And he's thrown up so much stuff, you guys. So there's certain chicken he doesn't want to eat. Right now, it's literally just very limited. He doesn't like oatmeal anymore. He hates oatmeal because one of the first things he started throwing up was oatmeal. He loved oatmeal before. But once that oatmeal started coming out, he won't touch it anymore. And we can't force him to touch it because if we force him to touch it, he could throw it up again. It makes the food aversion worse. So we try to kind of slide stuff back in there slowly and hope it doesn't trigger the cyclic vomiting. So cyclic vomiting, like I said, cyclic vomiting can last. I think it says what they were telling us was 90+% of people who have it grow out of it once they hit adolescence. Well, we're not sure how that's going to work for him because each kid is kind of different. And so right now, what his doctor has done, there are medications now for it, but it's not a cure for it. The medication just kind of help minimize the episodes, help them kind of stay low, if it makes any sense. And so that's what, excuse me, what we've been doing for it. His doctor prescribed him, one of them is an allergy medication. The allergy medication is just to block anything that he might take in that he has a reaction to. And it's supposed to just, and it's been working. So that's what we've been doing. But it can cause like weight gain. I don't think that's an issue for him right now. He's a very active kid. He's putting on weight, but she's happy with the weight he's putting on because he was really skinny. Then there's two other ones, but they're usually prescribed to adults, but they minimize the dosage to give it to kids who are dealing with stuff like this. One of them is a heart medication, and the other one is a anxiety and depression medication, because they have shown having a significant effect on cyclic vomiting. So that is what Kai has been going through in the last 2.5+ years. My baby has been having a hard time because in addition to him dealing with the cyclic vomiting, like it was constant before we figured out what was going on, he also kept picking up everything, every cold. There was a period where you guys did a video where they both had RSV. And at that time, RSV was taking kids. Like it was taking kids, it was taking the elderly, like it was bad. And so he has been pretty much nonstop sick up until the last about 6-7 months. And we did have mini episodes. They weren't as bad. He did want to just go to sleep after, but it wasn't him constantly throwing up. And it only happened twice since they started him on this new medication. He did end up going to a stomach doctor in particular to figure out what was going on. And the gastric doctor was a pediatric, what is it? I don't know. He does the stomach up, and he's a pediatric one. But he said that's exactly what's going on. We ran a whole bunch of tests. We had scans and x-rays, everything done. He said everything looks fine. So they were spot on what they believed it is. And so now we're just going this route to see what's going on. And so far, so good. Like I said, he's only had two mini episodes in about 6-7 months. And it's because we gave him some stuff that he hadn't had in a long time, and he threw it right back up. So that's been going on with him. I'm going to get into some of the other stuff next. So next up is my mini, the littlest of us. He deals with something else. Oh, it's been rough for sure. Okay, so if you are new, I mentioned earlier, I'm 6'2", my husband's 6'9". Our children grow different. As in they are more rapid in their development, everywhere. I can't say in just their size, it's everywhere. So Mari is just like his older brother, Kai. Kai did not sleep through the night until just before 2 years old. Mari is 2.5, and he just started sleeping through the night. So we haven't gotten full nights of sleep. Well, we learned something about our Mari within the last year as well. Mari deals with night terrors. I don't know if you guys know what night terrors are, but basically it's like a horrible dream that you cannot wake up from. And what happens is he'll be asleep. He'll start to scream in his sleep. Then his breathing, he starts going when he's trying to breathe, because he's kind of like, it's like his body's in a panic, okay? And then his body stiffens, and then he just screams. You cannot wake him up. No matter what you do, you can pick him up, you can call his name, you can do everything. He won't wake up. The episode itself has to end before he'll wake up on his own, usually. We still try to rock him and sing to him and try to calm it down faster, but I'm not sure. From what I was reading and when we talked to the pediatrician is the same as his older brother. She says not a whole lot you can do about those. We just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like a seizure or something, because he also clenches his jaw and grinds his teeth really hard when it's happening. Well, we found out that when Mari has a night terror, he's about to get sick. That was something we learned from his doctor as well. She said sometimes when they're little like that, the night terrors lead into something else. Like he's sick, like his body is doing something, like he's in pain of some sort. And when she says pain, it's usually like his teeth, because he's still got teeth coming in, so he'll be teething. But normally he's getting sick some kind of way. And we had to put that together. I told her, I said, I think he's getting sick when it happens. And she asked why. And I told her because every time he has one of these, something follows, a cold, a stomach bug, but it's something following. So Mari has a night terror before he gets sick. He had one about 3 days ago. 4 days ago, and he was about to catch a cold. We're able, I mean, it sucks because in those moments you can't do anything. You can't comfort your baby, you can't wake your baby up, nothing. But it gives us a heads up that something's coming. Normally it's a cold. It's been a cold a lot of the times lately because what's going on is Kai's bringing something home, and Kai's immune system is building up to where, he can knock it out in a couple of days. Mari's is still building, and so he'll get sick and it lasts a little bit longer. But we know that that's coming tomorrow, so we know to kind of, start giving him his cold medicine or start giving him the Motrin. We'll figure out in the morning which one it is. Normally when he gets up, he'll start coughing or sneezing. That'll alert us that it's a cold or some sort. He'll throw up if it's something like a stomach bug, and if it's his teeth, he'll start biting on everything. So it kind of gives us an indication of what we need to start doing. Or if he's like backed up really bad or something, he'll grab our hand and put it on his tummy. So we'll know that that's what's coming. But that's what's been happening to Mari. And so when you already ain't getting no sleep and your baby starts screaming, and the night terrors usually happen shortly after they go to sleep, within about 2 hours. So right after he goes to bed, give it a couple of hours. If he starts hollering and screaming, his body tenses. I mean, his arm, he'll lock them completely. And then you can't bend his arms. His eyes are like slightly open, but it's almost like they're rolling. And then he's just screaming, and then he's breathing differently. And you can't wake him up. We've tried to, hey buddy, wake up, come on love, wake up. And he won't wake up. And we found out from a doctor that that's kind of part of it. You can't wake him. So that's been happening with Mari. Oh, y'all. In addition to him catching everything that his brother brings home. So, as I said, they both had RSV. And now Kai has a breathing machine. Because Kai's get to the point where he can't stop coughing to catch his breath. If it makes any sense. So we call the machine the Dragon. It's a little doggy shape. It's like an actual dog statue that he breathes in this medicine. And the medicine helps calm everything so he will stop coughing so he can breathe. Otherwise, he just keeps coughing. He can't get words out. He can't catch his breath, nothing. He just coughs. So my babies have been having a go of it for this last couple of years. So let's move on to the next thing that's been going on. All right. Next thing. As y'all know, I have had a surgery this year. I had an umbilical hernia from when I was pregnant with my now 6-year-old. I never got the hernia fixed because it really wasn't bothering me, and we were moving around so much and I had so much stuff going on that I didn't stop to get it fixed. That's on me. But I finally got it fixed back in October. I had the hernia done. Or I had it repaired. There's a mesh in there. I found out the same way I found out about anesthesia. It does not sit well with my spirit. Okay. Not just my body, my spirit. All right. The anesthesia makes me sick. Badly. I learned that when I was pregnant with when I went into labor with my now 2-year-old, they did the epidural, and when I say it just did not sit, I threw up the whole time I was in labor, to the point where they would go, okay, push, and I would bear down, and I would push, and I would lean over and throw up into the barf bag, and I would sit up again, and I would push, and then as I felt throw up, I would lean over it was like that the entire labor. And it didn't stop until they took the epidural. They stopped the epidural. So from the time I got it, I think my stomach started itching, and then I got extremely nauseated. My doctor was like, why haven't you eaten anything? I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to eat before you come in here. She's like, get her some crackers and juice, something. Because they thought it was the reflux that I deal with. No, it was epidural. So, and then I had the hernia surgery. Right after I woke up from the hernia surgery, same thing. I was sick. And at the time, they just had that hurricane that hit Florida and South Carolina. And apparently one of the saline factories is in South Carolina. So they could not push saline through to clear the anesthesia out of my system. So I just sat there and kept throwing up. And then they gave me a medication that amplified the anesthesia. That was supposed to be pain medication. Ended up in the hospital about 3 days later. Could not keep any food down, and I was extremely weak to the point where just lifting my arm had my entire body shaking. Well, I went back in this morning to see my PCP. I do have some pain, but they said they think that it is just the mesh. that they had to use to secure my abdomen. She said it could take a couple of years or up to a year and some change for it to stop being painful when I get to moving around. And then there is a like a little lump, almost like a knot on my abdomen. It's been there for a while now, and it doesn't hurt. It's just there. Now I know why it was there. And my doctor told me today that it's just going to be a cosmetic fix at this point, because what happened was because of the hernia, and I kept moving for that 6 years, it made another part of my abdomen weak. And so that's why it bulges out like that. So she said I would have to do like plastic surgery. She said if I ever wanted anything like a tummy tuck, and I'm like, this is how it is at this point. We don't do unnecessary surgeries if we don't need them. This is how the good Lord made me, and I'm okay with that. So if working out can't fix it, it's just a part of my abdomen at this point. My husband does not mind. I can tell you that now. So that's what's been happening with me. I have been struggling with it a little bit because it's still painful, and it's more painful than when it was just the hernia to begin with. And now I have 8 holes. They look like little tiny black dots at this point, but I now have 8 kind of holes. I did a video on that as well, going through that whole process and how everything worked out. I'll be 3 months out, maybe a week or so from that surgery, but I'm okay at this point. I'm able to move my kids. I can move around the house. I can do everything that I want to do. I also have the back issue from when I was in labor. I damaged my lower back. It seems kind of bad. I went to the doctor for that today, but the test that she needs, the insurance company won't allow her to get unless I do physical therapy, which is weird to me because I kind of feel like if we got the MRI and figured out exactly what's wrong, I might not actually need the physical therapy. You know what I mean? Like she said I needed an MRI, but I can't get an MRI because the insurance company requires that you do so much physical therapy before they'll say okay to an MRI. And being an old athlete, I understand that an MRI is important because the MRI can pinpoint exactly what the issue is so they can make a treatment plan based upon what's actually wrong with you. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But what was happening is my back will completely lock. I cannot move, and I am in excruciating pain if it locks. And so we have changed a lot of things around the house to make it easier on my back. Like we got a front-loading washer and dryer and put them on the pedestals to make it about 2 feet taller. Because what was happening is I would have to bend into the washer, which is extremely low, but I have to bend over into something to pick it up and put it somewhere else. And the pain would just kind of shoot down my lower back. So we changed to front loaders. But there are some things we cannot change, like the counter height. As I mentioned, I'm above average. I'm taller than the average man. And so the counters come to about my mid-thigh. So I have to slouch. And when I slouch, it makes my back hurt really badly. So that's what's going on there. I got some medicine for the back pain and the inflammation. I do everything that I can to treat the pain and inflammation, but those are things that I cannot fix. I mean, I can try to get the house customized, but then I will have to put the house back if we ever want to sell the house. Like, then you still got to go through like the city and stuff like that to get the stuff approved to do, and we'll have to change the whole house. You hear me? The door frames got to be taller because my husband almost bumped his head going into them. The shower head is short. We have the duct under the shower heads. Like, the sink is way too low. Like, it's a lot of stuff that we just can't. It's a struggle. Okay, it's a struggle. So that's what's happening there. And then there's just another thing that has been a kick in the pants. I'm going to tell you guys now. Okay, guys. So the final thing that's been going on is probably a bit of the worst, right? So I'm going to try to give you all this timeline best I can since we've been here. But y'all, it has been so much death. I mean, like, so much death. It is wild. Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all timelines here. So in November of 2022, my husband lost his sister. It was like a couple days before Thanksgiving, but he had to fly back over there. In, what was it, May of 2023, I lost one of my uncles, one of my favorite uncles. I think he's like everybody's favorite uncle. One of our favorite uncles, like all of the nieces and nephews. And we lost him. July of 23, I lost one of my grandmothers. Or June. June of 23, I lost one of my grandmothers. August 23, my husband lost his grandmother. Thanksgiving Day 23, I lost another uncle. And my mom was here. That was harder because my mother was here. And it was her older brother. And both of the uncles I lost were my mother's brothers. My mother's the baby of 15, if you guys don't know. Technically 17, but she's the baby of all of them. And she lost a few siblings. But that was one of my uncles. She lost him on Thanksgiving Day. We were sitting down playing a game, I remember, because we finally got my mother and my father in the same room for the first time for a holiday in literally 26 years. We had them both here. But we lost my uncle on Thanksgiving Day. February 2024. My husband was at the hospital with Kai because he was sick again, and we lost my mother-in-law while he was at the hospital. And I don't know. Because it's been a lot of death back over here. I'm just giving you guys the big ones. But in between there, we've lost cousins. We've lost friends. Like, it has been a rough couple of years. Anywho, so that was February of 2024. April 2024, my husband loses his brother. There's 4 of them. So he lost 2 of his siblings. He has his big sister left, and both of his parents are now gone. And it just seems like everything has just been back to back to back to back to back. Like, we can't breathe from one death before another one hits you. And I know this is that point of life where it happens, you know. It's a part of life that I feel like nobody really talks about that much. You know, this period where people just start to die. And our family is weird because, you know, my mom was part of the 15. We always know the 15. And it's like one of them died and more of them just started to go. And I've lost some friends in between time. He's lost some cousins, and like a lot of them. Like when he went home to bury his mother, the day they were burying his mother, the way that they do funerals there is as soon as someone passes, a group of people from the neighborhood, family members, they get together and they go dig the grave. That's how that works. And I only know that because when we went back the first time, someone up the street that everybody knew on that block died. And my husband and his brother went and they helped dig the grave. And while he was there burying his mother, shortly after, while they were still at the grave, or they were still digging or burying his mom, half of the family had to leave because one of his cousins died in that moment that they were standing there. And they had to take the hearse, as well as some of the people had to split off to go and dig the grave for that cousin. So when I tell you, it's like, and it's like we can't breathe before someone else is taken, right? The grandmother that I lost, she was, I don't know how to explain. So I have my actual grandparents. My mother's mother passed away back in like 06, 07. And then my father's mother is still, my dad's mother is still alive. But my dad's mother and his father aren't together. I don't think they really ever were together. So my grandfather's wife is the one I call a grandmother because that's the grandma, one of the grandmothers I know, right? Okay. So my parents split a long time ago. Like when I was they were on and off for a really long time. because I think they were together ultimately about 12 years. And my dad and them, they actually divorced, I want to say I was about, I don't know, 6, 7, something like that. But they were on and off most all my life, or up until that point. Well, there came a point when my dad disappeared. I'm just now getting to where I'm okay with my dad within like the last decade, because I stopped talking to him for about 2 decades, to be honest. But within the last about 5 to 7 years, I've gotten back on good terms with my father. But when my father disappeared, a chunk of his family disappeared. Like pretty much all of them. We didn't see them. We didn't talk to them. Nothing. And my grandmother actually lived on the same street as us up until I was about 12. And she never came to see us. My dad would say he was coming. He didn't come. I lost touch with some of the cousins on that side altogether. But there were 2 who never wavered. And that was my grandfather and his wife, because she's been with him my whole life. She never wavered. He never wavered. They were always there. And we didn't live in the same place as them, but they made sure that we were included, right? Anything that came up, my granddad would drive 2 cities over to come and get us, to bring us stuff, to just take us for a day out. And she was right there with them, you know what I mean? Christmases and barbecues and everything. That's where we went, was to their house. And they would let us sleep over, and it was just always so much fun. And I finally got to get my grandfather something this year and write him a letter, and he wrote one back, and he said, I loved y'all because y'all loved me. It didn't matter what happened with your parents, you know what I mean? And he never wavered. My granddad never wavered, and neither did she. So that's why I'm like, that's my grandma, because she's my grandmother. And so when I tell you, it's just been like loss after loss after loss after loss. And I feel like it was heavier on my husband this year because they were so close to him. Everybody, including his grandmother, like close. And this isn't like extended family. This is like I grew up with these people in the house with me every day, family, you know? And the saddest part was, he had booked a trip to get back home to see his mother. And he was supposed to left on Monday, and she passed on Saturday. A Saturday before he could get there. And I'm like, I was in a space where I'm like, I don't know how to console. Like, what do I do? Because it was like so much. And so we've been here 2.5 years. I don't even know if I've lost track on how many people we've lost in this time. But it has just been ugly. On the tragedy side, it has been ugly, you guys. And so that's why I was saying, like, it's little silent battles, you know, that you don't see, because we smile and it's okay, and you know, we keep pushing and we keep going, because our kids are looking at us like, oh, what's wrong, mommy and daddy? And we can't really pause to be sad or emotional and to cry. And it's been a doozy, you guys, for sure. Been a doozy for us for the last couple of years and some change. And I feel like, you know how they say you finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what it feels like. You know, you're kind of just hoping to see that light at the end of that tunnel. And I think we're finally getting there, you know, especially figuring out what's been going on with the kids. And because that's also different. That's also difficult, to deal with, because at the time the kids were sick. So what happened was, Kai was in the hospital Saturday. He was throwing up. Couldn't figure out what was wrong. He just kept throwing up. Come Sunday night, Amari starts throwing up too. Now, mind you, Kadir has to leave Monday. His flight out is Monday. And we're in the ER. And he has to leave to go catch his flight to get back home for his mom's service and everything. And so he left, and I'm not gonna stop him. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be like, no, just one. I would never. That's his mother. He needs to be there. Like, you have to be there. And so then I'm trying to juggle the 2, and one's sick, and I'm here alone, and I don't have help. I mentioned that to you guys before. I don't have help. It's just me. And so when I say it's been a lot happening around us, it's been a lot happening around us. And we have been as resilient as we think we can be, trying to hold everything together, trying to make sure our family is okay, taking care of our families, from me a state away, my husband from a continent away, doing everything that we can to support everybody, because my brother-in-law that just passed away got 6 kids, left behind a wife, and the youngest was 1 at the time, 1.5, little girl. And so it's a lot to be left on a widow. But where they're from, they even call me our wife. She's our wife. So if something happens, they take care of each other. So now a lot of that responsibility falls on my husband and the oldest sister, to take care of everything for everyone and to be there as much as they can support-wise for everybody. So for it to say it was a difficult year is a bit of an understatement, I feel like, but or a difficult few years, but we're making it. And so far, there hasn't been a thing that, as they say, God won't put more on you than you can bear. And I've also been repeating, he gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. And I'm like, can I be put on the injured reserve list? Okay, because what is happening? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know, listen, I appreciate your confidence, Lord, that I'm strong. I thank you. Tired. Ready for a little break. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's been happening with us, you guys. I hope this catches you all up on the ins and outs of everything. Hopefully this gets people to stop leaving stupid comments under videos, because again, you do not know what people are going through. You don't know the different battles that they're facing, and to say stuff is just, it's infuriating. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I walk around here in pain most days. I can't help that I'm in pain. I can't stop the pain. The only thing I can do to stop it is to sit still. And I hate that. I hate it. I like to move. I like to be active. I like to be productive. I like to get things done so that everything else runs smoothly. You know what I mean? Husband, he has some of the same issues, but his is more of his hip, because my husband, he got old basketball injuries. Just like I got the knee, he got the hip and the groin. And so, and his finger, because somewhere when he was in college, he went to dive for a ball, and his finger hit another teammate's knee, and the bone broke out of his hand. Like, broke clear through the skin, everything, and he just popped it back in. Like, so we have old injuries, and, you know, sometimes they act up, you know. Mine aren't so much old. The back thing just happened 2 years ago. And the hernia has been there for 6+ years, but the surgery wounds and that healing process is fairly new. So just be kind to people. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what they're going through, what they're dealing with. Just be kind. It's so easy and it's free to just be kind to people. Okay? And don't talk about people's kids. You don't know what's happening with their children. Okay? So all y'all commenting about what my son eats. That's all I care about right now. We sneak in the fruits and the veggies. Don't you worry about that. But my son eats. And that's bigger to me right now, since I know he won't eat sometimes. So thank you all as well. I want to say this too. Thank y'all for the support. I thank y'all so much for all the kind words. I thank y'all for just being here. I know that it's not, I don't want to say it's not easy, but you don't have to be here. You don't have to be kind. You don't have to leave comments. You don't have to be uplifting, but I appreciate all of it. Thank you. Because in this last couple of years, I've needed every bit of encouragement that I can get. Okay? Because it's just been rough. It's been a rough go of things. It's been a bit more difficult. And though I smiled through it, it is hard. So thank y'all for the support. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for sticking around. It is greatly appreciated. So I hope you found this video informative. If there was something that you're dealing with, if you have questions about this stuff and I can answer it, feel free to drop it in the comment section, especially about the cyclic vomiting and the night terrors. Even if you want to know how we're dealing with the grieving processes that have been going on nonstop for like 2 years, let me know that as well. I'll definitely, I'll lend a word if you need it, okay? So thank y'all again so much for watching, and I hope I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, guys.